time of the year is a time for family, memories and laughter, but for those living in informal settlements in low-lying areas, challenges like flooding and accidental fires can make life unbearable. We're joined now to speak on safety tips around the holidays by spokesperson of Johannesburg Emergency Management Services, Mr. Robert Mulaudzi. Mr. Mulaudzi, thank you very much for your time this evening. One can only imagine what a difficult time this is, not only for yourselves, but for the countless number of people who are living in informal settlements. Let's start perhaps with the situation at Joburg in Alexandra.
Good evening and evening to the viewers. Yes, we have been receiving a lot of rainfalls in the last few days, and which makes most of our river streams which cuts across our city, meaning Joburg, Calfontein and also Klip Valley. We have been monitoring the water levels in those areas. The water levels are much more higher now, and also it might be risky to the residents who are staying in those low-lying areas, mostly those who are right in the river banks, which might flood and put the lives of those residents at risk. We have monitored those areas. We've got our disaster management monitoring teams in those areas, monitoring to make sure that if there's a need for us to evacuate people who can be able to do so. We have conducted a number of training in those areas in terms of disaster preparedness and also evacuation procedures. So we should be able to handle the situation when the need arises.
So you are on standby, ready for any eventuality. In terms of the roads in Johannesburg?
Yes, most roads are wet and slippery since it has been raining from last night up until throughout the day today. So we encouraging our motorists out there to be cautious, of course, to extend the safe following distance and try and avoid maybe crossing in areas which might be flooded. We've seen in the past where motorists try to take a chance to cross those flooded areas, even if when there's barricades which are actually closing the road. We have seen motorists trying to remove those barricades and try and take a chance to cross those areas, which might be very dangerous because people might actually lose their lives while they're trying to cross, those areas. So our message to our motorists out there is to say, let's exercise caution. Try and avoid those areas and use alternative routes so that we can prevent incidents which might occur as we continue to receive this rainfall throughout this week.
You mentioned that members of your team have received some sort of training, especially for people who are living in low-lying areas. In terms of advice or the kind of training that they have had, what is it that you tell them to tell people or when they interact with people?
Yeah, we actually training in terms of, the residents who are in the low-lying areas. Of course, they need to monitor the water levels. They've got some kind of whistles which they can be able to alert the other neighbors to evacuate and move to the higher ground. And of course, if there's somebody who's injured in the area, they're able to render, first aid before us as emergency professionals arrive in those areas. So we've got, we call them community emergency response teams in those areas we've got the necessary skills to respond to all the emergencies, be it fire incidents and also, flooding incidents which might occur in those areas. So they're able to evacuate as quickly as possible and also make sure that everyone is safe in that area and move to an area whereby they can be able to assemble and call everyone to make sure that everyone is safe in that specific communities. So we're hoping that over and above the disaster management officials which have been dispatched to all 7 regions of the city to monitor, those areas, we should be able to respond to those emergencies which might occur throughout the city of Johannesburg. Of course, throughout this season, all our 30 fire stations throughout the city of Johannesburg are fully operational. Most of our members, they didn't get a chance to go on leave to be with their members, to be with their families. Instead, they are on duty to make sure that we are capable of rendering effective emergency services to all the residents of the city of Johannesburg. So we encouraging all our residents to continue to look after themselves as we move towards the New Year celebrations. We know that the city has got bylaws which regulates the safe use of fireworks. So we're encouraging them to make sure that they use those fireworks safely so that we can be able to prevent injuries which might occur, while they're using these fireworks. Because we've seen in the past where, especially young kids, losing their hands, while they're using these fireworks, unsafely. So our message to, adults and parents out there is to make sure that they monitor young kids, to make sure that they, don't get injured while they're trying to use these fireworks.
You just talked about the sacrifices that members of your team make. So thank you very much to yourself and to members of your team for taking time out from your families to ensure that other people are safe. I wondered, though, if you are worried about the safety of your members with the road well paved for New Year's festivities.
Yes, we are prepared. Our line of work is, it's risky. Every time when we go out there, we make sure that we exercise caution. And we still know that we are still on a level 1 lockdown. We still have the virus pandemic amongst us. We need to make sure that we protect ourselves so that we can be able to protect our residents out there. So our message is that as we celebrate the New Year, our residents need to be aware that we still have, we're still on level 1 lockdown, and the city bylaws regulates that fireworks can only be used between an hour before midnight and an hour after midnight. So that means they can be able to use fireworks between 11 and 1. And after that, residents are not expected to continue to use fireworks. And of course, the sellers or dealers, wholesalers who will be selling fireworks, will have to monitor them to make sure that they've got the required documents in terms of the compliance certificate, which we issue from our side as the EMS and also from South African Police Service Explosive Unit. We will also make sure that the storage of those fireworks are stored at the required places. For instance, they've got the glass cabinets which are storing these fireworks. Then also they've got the fire service equipment like fire extinguishers, hose reels, to make sure that if there's a fire incident in those areas, they're able to deal with that situation. So we will continue to make sure that these wholesalers are complying. The main objective is not to harass them, but we've got a responsibility as a department to make sure that all the residents enjoy, this festive season safely, and of course they celebrate the coming year safely without any injuries. So we have to do what we have to do. And of course, those wholesalers who will not be complying with our fire service bylaws, unfortunately, we have to issue, fines which ranges from 2,000 rands and upwards. And of course, we'll have to confiscate those goods, meaning fireworks, with the main objective of making sure that our residents are enjoying their holiday safely and they get to enter into the new year safely without any injuries.
Robert Mulaudzi speaks for the Johannesburg Emergency Management Services. Thank you for your time this evening.